everyone. You are at workshop number 4. My name is Michael McCram with Kitco. Next up, we're going to hear from David Morgan, and he's going to be talking about the coming energy boom. Yes, we are running a little bit behind, but thanks for your patience, and I'd like to hand it over to David Morgan.
Okay, as we're waiting for the slides to come up, a couple words on the previous speaker. He's right. We focused in the Morgan Report on royalty and streamers for a long time, and there's a reason for that. They make you money. And they really work almost regardless of the price of gold and silver. So it's kind of nice to have something that's tied to the metals without having the downside that a lot of other just regular mining companies have. And one more comment on silver, because this lecture is going to be about energy. But for those that were ridiculing me outside of the venue here, well, silver market must be bottoming or bottom because you're talking about energy today. I'll say yes. And really right now, silver is at the lowest price it's been ever. And you say, well, wait a minute, David, how can you say that? And the point is, if you look at when Warren Buffett bought silver in 1997 at under $5 the ounce, the monetary price of silver in the Great Depression was 22 cents. And I think everybody knows that $5 is more than 22 cents, but on an inflation-adjusted basis, Buffett was buying silver at a lower price than the Great Depression. And what I'm telling you right now is based on the TMS, the true money supply, which is what the Austrians use. $15 silver is cheaper than $5 silver. That's how much inflation has gone on from the time I started the Silver Investor website back in 1998 to present day. Anyway, I'm still waiting for the slides, and I know they're going late. So I got into this. I've been thinking about energy for a long time. And years ago, I'm going to guess more than a decade, I was somewhat famous for starting my lectures with a few introductory words, and then I would make this dramatic pause, and then I would play a film clip out of either a movie on the financial scene or maybe a docudrama or something along those lines. And one of them was a DVD that was given to me on one of my trips to Europe, and the title of it was Who Broke Britain? And so I already had some preconceived ideas about this DVD without even watching it. I popped it in my laptop and I watched it on my ride from the UK back to the United States. And in this docudrama, it talked about gold, finances, and primarily oil, and how critical oil is to everything that we do. And they had, and remember, this is a docudrama. It's not real life, but it's reflecting real life. In fact, it was put out by the BBC, or at least run on the BBC. So they have this gentleman that is pretending to be like the finance minister of the UK, and he says, well, everyone thinks that the world runs on energy, or on money, finances, interest rates, and such. But in reality, the world runs on energy. And for the most part, that means oil. And without it, nothing happens. Well, this docudrama was that there was a problem with the oil fields in the Middle East, and lots of bad things happened, and the price of gold took off. So that's the short version. So, been looking at it for a long time. There is a lot of opportunity in this sector. So, let's see if I can I'll just nod to you for the next slide. So that's a disclaimer. Everything I say up here, just take it with a grain of salt. Next slide. Trust me, don't trust me, it's your choice. All right, do you need energy in your portfolio? Yes, you do. For a balanced portfolio, I often get asked, David, you do great in the resource sector, gold, silver primarily. We look at all the resources. What else? And I've always answered the same, energy. Next slide, please. this is a bit of a caveat, but we're at a 7 billion plus population on the planet, rough numbers. I mean, 2050, it's projected to be something along 9 billion people. There's something like 1.5 billion people that have no electricity. There's something like 2 billion people that live on $2.50 a day or less. I mean, there's a lot of discrepancies between the West and the rest of the world, and I've seen some of it. So, next slide. And I don't know if it's the easiest, but probably the best strategy to have is an overall investment strategy that runs into the energy sector. So obviously we're going to be covering oil and gas and coal and hydrocarbons of other forms and geothermal. We're looking at everything. I actually went out and started looking for research of any group, individual, consortium that covers the gamut of energy. And honestly, I couldn't find any that covered them all. And that's what we're attempting to do. So if we look back from like the 1820s to 2000, it's pretty apparent that we have not only increased our energy consumption, we've gone from burning wood into coal, the next one up. Of course, oil is huge. And then you see nuclear is actually a very small percentage of the overall energy sector. If we fast forward to today, from 2000 to 2017, the next slide, what you'll find is, taking off of that last slide, you still have your coal, petroleum, natural gas. Nuclear, again, is pretty small. But you see this other renewables, and you see how much that has grown over the last 10, 15 years, substantially. And there's a big push into that for a lot of reasons. Now, with my critical thinking and analytical skills and help, it's not all me, a lot of these things are iffy, meaning that they are not viable based not only on finance, which is pretty easy to do because you can create money out of nothing, but when you look at them from a critical standpoint of energy return on energy invested, which is the way I'm approaching all of these, and I'll be analyzing these markets for you, and a lot of the analysis will be, don't do this one, or stay away from this sector, or watch it for a while, whatever. A lot of these startups can do well because of hope, hype, and hyperbola, but in the long run, they're not viable. But what is factual is the population consumption per capita. So even if the world stayed at the same population base, think about your own life. How much electricity were you using 20 years ago? I don't know how much exactly I was using, but I know, with 2 mobile phones, a laptop, a tablet, how much I'm on the internet for research and other things, I know my energy consumption has gone up. And that trend, I think, is going to continue. And we have some more slides to prove that point. So there's a direct correlation between the amount of energy available in the population. When you have a low amount of energy per capita or on the planet that's available, then you're going to basically keep your population in check. When all of a sudden you discover oil in 1893 and it starts giving you man hours of power for very low prices, you will get a huge increase in the population, which is obviously what we have witnessed. And it touches everything. There isn't anything that energy doesn't touch. I mean, from the food we eat to the sidewalks we walk on, there isn't anything that isn't connected to energy in one way, shape, or form. So again, if you believe the world's going to grow, you're going to want to get one of the better investments to make, and that's energy, of course. It is the lifeblood of the world. The International Energy Agency predicts that demand will grow by 30% by 2035. That's just 16 years away. So there is a huge impetus to make sure that you have a balanced portfolio and you have some exposure to energy. And electricity is going to grow roughly twice that fast. And the reason being is that everybody is connected with a smart device. If you just go to China and look around, I mean, you think we're bad here looking at our little screens walking across the street. They don't even make fun of it in China. It's just a way of life. Everything is done off their mobile. So to give you an idea of how much money is going to flow in this sector, it looks like approximately 37 trillion in production and supply infrastructure over the next 2 decades. A lot of this is going to be R&R, remove and replace existing infrastructure to make it more efficient. Others will be LNG, liquefied natural gas, which is a very somewhat volatile but very energy efficient when you put it in there, but its transportation is a problem. I see improvements in that area, and just generally the thrust being that the more technologically advanced, the higher lifestyle population has, the more energy is used per person. It's just that simple. Still, you got to consider oil and gas. You can't get away from it. In fact, in a lot of ways, oil can't be replaced, and I'll be talking about that in the reports, but it's something we'll focus on, but not exclusively upon. So right now, the trends are, there's less and less, marriages are being put off. A lot of people are looking at whether they want kids or not. I know the population's increasing, and it will. More middle class will be created in the future, and billions of people will move, as China has, from a very low level existence to a much higher level existence. And again, that spells energy demand. And like everybody, they'll want what the West has shown them on television show after television show. They'll want their own transportation. They'll want basically everything you see on the TV. It's considered, quote unquote, the good life. So I think this was important to dwell on a little bit. Total middle class spending in Asia alone is projected to go from roughly 5 trillion in 2009 to 32 trillion in 2030. That's just over a little more than 10 years away, and that's a 7-fold increase. I mean, just think about it. Just do a thought experiment with me for a moment. Think about China 10 years ago. How many cell phones were out in China? And the answer is there weren't very many. And if you go now into China, it's like everybody's got at least one cell phone. These things happen very rapidly. Think about telecommunications in China for a minute. I know I'm digressing, but they didn't have to put up telephone poles of copper wire, right? They just bypassed that whole, they just bypassed that whole thing with the cellular revolution, right? So these are where technologies can kind of leapfrog, so why spend all that money? There's been a technological breakthrough that's taken place. You've got to stay ahead of these things, and there's a lot of ways to make money here. Next slide, please. So it all takes energy, and try doing anything without energy, as I said earlier. Turn on your lights, try to mine, try to drive a car, build a home, anything. It all takes energy. And without energy, absolutely nothing happens. So again, to be diversified, I think you really want to take a look in the energy sector. So which sectors? And briefly, and this is just not all of them, but obviously I keep harping on oil and gas. We have a crossover. One of the projects I like in the energy metal sector, which I was one of the first to spearhead, and lithium's the baby darling of everybody, but really there's a lot of lithium on the planet, like 400 years worth. Is in one of those. We have that in both the reports. This one's being launched today, by the way. But there's solar, uranium, nuclear, wave energy, wind energy, biomass, hydrogen fuel cells, cold fusion, question mark, free energy, big question mark, algae, and others. So I'm going to be looking at all these. And again, a lot of these editorials that I'll be doing will be looking at what this potential is, and it might sound like a great investment, but there's nothing that I see viable in that sector yet. And that's where you, as a subscriber, you might know somebody in BC that says, hey, David, this guy's actually doing it now. He's lab tested it for 2 years. You need to be introduced to him, that kind of thing. Don't know where it's going to go. I've never claimed to know everything, but I'm a free thinker, and I like this sector, and I think there's a lot to be explored, and I think we can actually have a synergistic back and forth with this model that I've created with my friend. Next slide. So biggest problem with energy investments, and a lot of investments in particular, zero cash flow. And so what we've created is something that I've done with this gentleman before. And this is my partner, Minesh Bhindi. We together created Energy Stock Profits. I've worked with him for over 2 years now on a program called Gold and Silver for Life. If you believe, like I believe, you want gold and silver as a hedge, maybe 10% of your portfolio. The problem is it doesn't cash flow. He created a system where you cash flow that let's call it emergency holdings or that insurance plan that you have so you can get income off of it. And it runs somewhere between 1.5% to 2% a month. So it's nice to have a hedge position, maybe 10% of your total portfolio, but it's still paying you to do so. We took the same idea and we've applied it to Energy Stock Profits. I've just been back to London for the third time of the year, which is my commitment to meet with all the people that subscribe to our service and have chit chat and a dinner and the things that we do for our clients. And he sat me down and said, "What do you think about energy? You're talking about it all the time, but you haven't done anything about it." I said, "Well, I don't know if I've got enough personal energy to tackle this again." And I do, and I'm passionate about it. And so we created a partnership where we're working together, and we're going to create. And we've created this. So next slide. So it's easy to figure out whether or not you're interested. We put together a workshop. I lectured for 6 hours in one day, and he did about 4. Put it all into a webinar that's absolutely for free, and you can go watch that. It'll give you a much better, more detail about what we're doing and what we're accomplishing. So basically, we're going to cash flow the energy sector by using the right ETFs and using our trading skills. So that'll give you immediate cash flow. On my side, where I do the research, we'll be looking again across the board in the oil and gas and other energy sectors, giving you top-tier cash-rich companies that you are pretty solidly going to make money as the commodity industry grows. And we're happy to see oil back off at this level. And then we'll be looking at certain special situations, like I mentioned, that we have one in cobalt that I don't think anyone here on this floor is even aware of. That's the only streaming situation that we've been able to find. And in fact, we just had some fantastically good news about the company. So even though the report was written about a month ago, we had to redo the whole thing like in the last 3 days and put it back up for the website because we already have subscribers. So the cash flow thing is great. It's nothing wrong with making 12 to 20% of your income. It's a very active kind of a service. It's not something you have to make it a job, but we are on the phone with you once or twice a month. And you will get trade alerts. So we'll be giving you, you'll get a signal saying, okay, do this, we're doing this. And we record everything. You can ask me questions directly. If you don't like part of my research or don't understand it or whatever, it's a direct interface that we have. It's the beauty of the web. I don't have to be in London every time. I can do it from my home office and still be just as creative from that point as being, right next to you, more or less. Next slide. So this is it. If you're interested, remember there's no THE in it. It's just comingenergyboom.com. Just go there. It's free. It is a bit long, so I don't know if the slider scale works on it or not, but I think it does. So you can start the thing and piecemeal it out. Take a look. And whether you decide to come on board with us or not, I do urge you to take a look at this because I think it'll be an eye-opener for you as far as how to evaluate whether or not something in the energy sector makes sense. Remember, we could create funny money out of nothing. So it really isn't a financial equation. It's an equation of how much energy do I have to put into this system to get out how much more energy, and how long will that last? Because I'll stand up and end with this, and it's not being Debbie Downer or negative Nora. It's reality. And there isn't any such thing as totally renewable energy. When you build that solar panel, it may pay you back in 5 years or maybe 10. I don't know. It depends on what you bought it, where you're located. There's a lot of variables. But that solar panel is not going to last 100 years. So at some point, you're going to have to take that thing down and replace it. So renewables aren't as renewable as you might think. A hydroelectric plant damming water is a better example of something that's more or less indefinitely renewable. Anyway, end of lecture. I'm going to hang out my booth. I think it's 1223. It's a 1200 block over there. I'll be going there immediately. If you have any questions about the metals markets, my new stock service, come on over, shake my hand, and ask me any questions you like. Thank you.